The internet. It's like this vast, mysterious world where anything and everything exists. I mean, seriously, think about it. No matter what you're into or what you believe, there's a corner of the internet just waiting for you. It's connected us all in ways we couldn't have imagined, bridging global gaps. But here's the kicker. Only some things on the internet are as it seems. Today at Mindscape, we will journey towards the dark web. So hold on tight so you don't get caught in its trap. If you want anything, whether a service or a product, legal or illegal, moral or unethical, the internet has it. At the surface level, we have the familiar landscape of everyday sites like YouTube, Twitter, and social media platforms. These are easily accessible and searchable and form the bulk of our online interactions. It's all a part of what we call the World Wide Web. It's relatively easy to find anything on the surface web, as almost everything is indexed by search engines like Google. Every second, over 1,000 photos are posted on Instagram, 8,000 tweets are posted on Twitter, 70,000 Google searches take place, and nearly 100,000 YouTube videos are watched. Here, almost everything you do leaves a digital footprint. You can easily search for information about individuals and their lives. However, certain sensitive data, like bank account details or medical records, remains hidden. These are safeguarded behind password-protected websites, accessible only to authorized users. That is where the deep web comes into the picture. When we step into the deep web, we're entering a section of the internet that search engines don't reach. In simple terms, if Google doesn't show it, it's part of the deep web. Surprisingly, if you've ever checked your email, you've technically browsed the deep web. However, it might not be as thrilling as it sounds. It's basically like the surface web, but with a touch more secrecy. But here's the kicker. The deep web is colossal, holding a whopping 96% of all internet content. Even if you spent every day for the next 50 years exploring news sites, you'd barely scratch the surface of what's out there. Most of it is beyond our reach anyway, and then, deeper still, lies the darkest corner of the internet. Here, hidden behind layers of encryption and anonymity, exist sites that evade detection. These websites have no IP addresses, making them virtually untraceable. Accessed by users with encrypted software, they operate in the shadows, offering anything and everything imaginable. Welcome to the dark web. When you're browsing the surface web, it's like the whole world's watching, right? Well, not exactly, but for most folks, online activities are pretty trackable. Many sites track your searches and browsing habits to tailor ads to your interests. Interestingly, the US government pondered this over 2 decades ago. They needed secure online communication. With the internet not exactly designed for secrecy, intercepting government messages during transmission was a real risk. So in the mid-90s, the US Naval Research Laboratory got cracking on something called onion routing. Onion routing serves as a shield for any transmitted data by encasing it in multiple layers of encryption, with the original message nestled in the innermost layer. Here's the breakdown. Imagine you need to send a message from point A to point B, but there are 3 midpoints, let's call them A, B, and C, that it must pass through. The message is then wrapped in 3 layers of encryption. Each layer only knows the previous point of origin and the next destination. So, the original data remains concealed. As the message moves through each midpoint, a layer of encryption is peeled away, and the next layer's instructions guide its journey forward. Only those intended to see the data can, thanks to onion routing, which enables the existence of darknets like Tor. It looks just like any other regular web browser, but through Tor and similar darknets, you gain entry to web pages beyond the reach of the general public. The tools and requirements for accessing the dark web attract diverse users worldwide. Links to dark web pages don't resemble typical URLs, ending not in .com or .org, but attempting to access these sites via traditional browsers is futile. But with Tor, it's a different story. Enter the Hidden Wiki, a compendium listing numerous hidden services available on the dark web. Here you'll encounter counterfeit IDs, illegal weapons, drugs, and more, just scratching the surface of what's available. Like on the surface web, marketplaces thrive in the dark corners. This is where you can procure items challenging to obtain elsewhere, like rocket launchers. Now, disclaimer time. I'm not endorsing any of this, but hey, if you're curious about how to navigate these sites and get your hands on stuff, here is how it is done. Alright, here's the deal. When it comes to the dark web, using regular payment methods like credit cards is a big no-no. They're just too traceable. And next thing you know, you're in hot water. That's where virtual currency steps in, and Bitcoin is the king of the castle. It's almost like digital cash, offering up a level of anonymity that's key for these underground markets. So, you want to dive into the dark web? Step 1. Get yourself a Bitcoin wallet and exchange some of your cash for Bitcoin. Boom, now you're in the game. Now, when people think dark web, they think drugs, and yeah, that's a big part of it. Back in 2011, Silk Road was the big player in town. It was like the Amazon of illegal stuff, selling everything from weed to cocaine, you name it. But here's the kicker. It got shut down by the FBI in 2013, along with a bunch of other similar sites. But here's the thing. Shut one down, and 5 more pop up in its place. And while the big shots behind these sites often get caught, their sentences, well, they're not exactly consistent. Some get slapped with a few years, while others, like Silk Road's founder Ross Ulbricht, get hit with life sentences. Kinda unfair if you ask me. But here's the kicker. Even if you've never set foot on the dark web, it can still come back to bite you. Data breaches happen all the time, and if your info gets snagged, it could end up for sale on the dark web, available to anyone with a couple of bucks and a bit of know-how. Scary stuff, huh? But don't worry, I have got you covered. Alright, let's talk about the shady stuff you can find on the dark web. Social security numbers? Yours could be up for grabs for as little as $1. That's a key to your whole identity, folks. And if you're feeling mischievous, you can rent a botnet for just a few bucks an hour. With that, you can unleash a DDoS attack and knock almost any website offline. It's like playing God, but with computers. Now, medical records? Yours or mine, just $50 a pop. And stolen credit cards? Buy now, pay never. Scary, right? And get this, a lot of this info isn't even for sale. It's just floating out there waiting to be snagged. Even politicians and celebs aren't safe. But wait, it gets darker. Hitmen for hire? Yeah, that's a thing. Sure, most of them are probably scams, but the fact that folks trust random strangers on the internet with murder plots gives me chills. And get this, sites are selling human organs. No clue where they're getting them, but if you're in the market, they've got you covered. And then there's the messed up stuff. Sites like Lolita City and Playpen were taken down, but once boasted over 200,000 users. Imagine that. Discussions about kidnapping kids, hiding them, and doing unthinkable things when no one's looking. It's a nightmare. Despite all this, half the funding for Tor, the software that lets you access the dark web, comes from the US government. Crazy, huh? You know, it's kind of wild when you think about it. Are a lot of these folks getting busted for dark web shenanigans? They're not exactly the stereotypical bad guys. You might pass them on the street or stand in line with them at the grocery store and not think twice. They blend right in. It's like they're leading this double life. You know, sure, the dark web gets painted as this massive criminal hub where all the worst of humanity hangs out. There's only a handful of these hidden sites out there, like 2 to 10,000 at most, and not even all of them are up to no good. We're talking less than 6% of Tor users diving into the deep stuff. That's a drop in the bucket compared to the billions surfing the web. But amidst all the darkness, there's a glimmer of hope. See, in places where governments censor the web, the dark web is like this sanctuary where truth can still shine through. It's a space where folks can speak out without fear of reprisal. Even big news outlets have a presence there, giving whistleblowers a safe place to spill the beans. It's funny, isn't it? How we're all so plugged into the internet nowadays. 10 or 15 years ago, this would have sounded nuts. But now, it's just part of life. In a way, The dark web is like this last bastion of privacy. It's where you can reclaim a bit of anonymity in an increasingly transparent world. Whether folks use that power for good or bad, well, that's up to them. And with that, let's steer clear of the dark web and stick to the brighter side of the internet. After all, there's plenty to explore.